Hello everybody, my name is Phythodas and this is the update video for the Frozen Blades build. This guy here is a Frozen Blades build and this guy has completed his journey through legendary difficulty all of the 5 acts of the game. For now, in the future maybe we get one more act, who knows. These are the items and this is the overall setup of this build that I have gone through the game, the whole game in legendary difficulty, and I have completed the journey with. So, let's talk about the skills first. For the skills we have the skills. Weapon training, some points on dual wield, the tumult, we use the battle rage, we have the crashing blow, we have the dodge attacks, the battle standard, the triumph, the onslaught, the ignore pain, the hamstring, and the ardor. And we also have the whirlwind and the lacerate. For the storm mastery, we play with the skills Squall, obscured visibility, summon wisp, the eye of the storm of course, the storm nimbus, the heart of frost, the static charge, the storm surge, the freezing blast, the energy shield, and of course the reflection skill. These are the skills we are using from this class, from Thane class, from the 2 masteries, but we also have 2 more skills down here. As we can see, we have 3 times Squall. This is Squall skill, Squall, Squall, Squall. These 2 squalls are granted by the 2 swords that we are holding with this character. So, we have all of the skills come from the 2 masteries except for these 2. 1, 2. Now for the items. For the items, this build is called Frozen Blades because we use the sword Pagos. This is the legendary sword of the game, one of the legendary swords of the game anyway. And this is all about cold damage, frostburn damage, things like that. Of course, it also did some physical damage at pierce ratio. And of course, I have upgraded both of the swords with the upgrade feature of the game. This sword was upgraded in epic difficulty, this one was upgraded in legendary. This one gave me the veteran suffix plus an affix which I don't remember the name right now, which provides fire damage and burn damage, things like that. Which was a very great thing because it makes this sword even more powerful. The idea of this build is to be casting the Squall skill on enemies and of course hitting enemies with our attacks with the swords, sword attacks. It is a dual wielding melee build, but we have the Squall skill that we cast all the time on the ground on our enemies and it helps with both our survivability, but also it helps with dealing more damage to enemies because the base Squall skill, which comes from the Storm Mastery, this Squall here, has the add-on Obscured Visibility. This add-on, when it hits enemies, it reduces the damage the enemies deal at you for 6 seconds and also it reduces the resistance of enemies, which means now enemies deal even less damage on our characters, but they also receive even more damage from all of our types of damages because of this reduction to their resistances. All of the resistances except for armor. For armor resistance reduction we have a different stat in the game, which is the reduced armor for some time. Yeah. So, there is a bug here. I should let you know, there is a bug. When you equip 2 copies of the sword here that comes with the same skill, which is Squall, and you get the same skill twice, and you put the one Squall of one sword here and the other Squall from the other sword, then when you load your character and you click on the one and use it, as you can see, the second one is also been used. This is a bug and every time we load this character we have to do this. Click on this one, right click and select Squall. We have this Squall is this one of this item and this Squall is this one. So we click here and now when we use the 2 Squall, the 3 is available to use it. This is a bug of the game. Now, apart from these bugs, this build is all about doing this thing, casting squalls everywhere and hitting your enemies. If you are in a distance from your enemies, you are using, you use the Whirlwind. First, of course, you cast squall, then you use Whirlwind. You run very fast, you hit enemies very fast. We have a very fast attacking speed with this build, so we destroy everybody. Also, having this skill here, the Tumult, this is a great skill because it is something like Whirlwind, but it happens without moving. I mean, you are in front of your enemies, you just hit them, and as you can see, sometimes we have this. This is the same animation as Whirlwind, the same movement, a cyclical movement. But yeah, it doesn't deal as much damage as this one, but it doesn't really matter. I use this Tumult here because of the 1 second of stun, mostly. This is a great skill because many times you hit enemies, this one triggers, it stuns enemies, and then when they recover from stun, you can use on them the Whirlwind skill and stun them again, and then after all of these things you keep fighting, you keep hitting them, and you keep killing them. Things become much easier this way, and this is why I maxed out this one. I didn't use any of the skills, I didn't care about the skills, and I haven't maxed out this one. This one has 22% chance to be used, this one has only 15% chance to be used. I didn't want to increase more the chance of this one to be used because I want this one to trigger more frequently, and I'm not sure, actually I haven't tested yet, maybe I should do some testing. I'm not sure if when this one has more chances to be used, if it gets in the path of this one and it makes this one being used even less frequently. This is something that I haven't tested out yet, but maybe I will make a test in the future. It doesn't really matter, the build works fine this way as it is for now, so everything is fine. Yeah, so this is the idea of the build. Of course, I have the freezing blast here too. This skill is mostly for crowd controlling enemies. In legendary difficulty especially, it is a super useful skill. It helps very much when you have many enemies, especially on a distance, and many of these enemies are ranged enemies, projectiles, they throw projectiles at you, bows, thrown weapons, whatever. You can use it, freeze some of them, use squall on other enemies, and as you can see we have too many crowd controlling effects on the battlefield. And this is why I think that this build would be perfect in multiplayer. Very soon I guess we will try this build in multiplayer because we play multiplayer all the time, constantly in this channel, so we will test this build out in multiplayer. Of course, in multiplayer, the best thing of this build would be to be casting squalls and freezing blast everywhere on the enemies, and the rest of the team, the other players, would be hitting enemies and killing them. But we also can kill enemies pretty fast with this build. At least many enemies. Okay, some enemies do not die that fast, but it doesn't really matter. This happens with every build after all. It is all about damage types and resistances and all of these things. The build works greatly. If we hit enemies with our normal attacks on slot here, as we can see, we deal also physical damages. And physical damage, these yellow numbers are critical hits, critical damage of physical type of damage, melee damage. And we have the battle standard. When we put it down on the ground and we keep hitting, as we can see now, our critical damage becomes at least 2.5 times bigger, which means we destroy enemies super easy and super fast when we cast down the battle standard. And this build becomes very powerful, of course. This skill here, Energy Shield, is very good because this one gives you protection against lightning and cold, and this one, which is maxed out, gives you a good chance of a good amount of damage reflected. Of course, this damage reflected is not good enough to be killing enemies by itself, but we use it as not a primary type of damage, but as a helping hand, we could say. a secondary type of damage which deals some damage to our enemies. Some damage our enemies take also from the main squall, which is a very strong skill. Some damage they take from these two secondary squalls. These two are not as powerful as this one. They also do not come with the obscured visibilities debuffs on enemies as the squall from Storm Mastery comes with. So, these two are not very strong, but they still have a very good chance to do this debuff on enemies in paired aim, which means enemies that throw projectiles at you now cannot really hit you with projectiles, they miss their target, which happens to be you, and they also have a chance to receive some lightning damage. If we add the lightning damage, small number of lightning damage from this squall, bigger number of lightning damage from this squall, if we put together the reduced resistances of that now the enemies get from this squall because of this debuff, which means that now we deal even more damage to those enemies because their resistances are reduced greatly, 45%, which is very good. And on top of that, if we have the battle standard on the ground and we hit them with our attack set skills like war with, as you can see, we destroy them completely. It is a very powerful build. And when I started creating this build, I didn't even expect this build to become that powerful. And of course, there is still room for this build to grow to become even better. Now, for the items. Of course, we have the power sword, as we said before. I'm using this one, Atuk. This is a mastery frequent item. It is very powerful. It is a rare drop, very rare drop for you to fight. You can fight this item only from troglodyte enemies. It has physical resistances, very good stats. I have attached the incarnation of Iron Will of Ajax, which is a great one because it gives important, very important resistances. The resistances here, 80% stun, it is very important, 74% slow down. Slow down resistance is super important, the same applies to stun. These two are the most important resistances for this build. You don't go to get stunned, you don't go to get slowed down. You go to fast as to hit as fast as possible, and also to cast your squalls as fast as possible. Our casting speed is not the best. So you can imagine that without having a very good casting speed, if you get slowed down, then your casting speed is getting reduced greatly, so you are fucked. Simple as that. So these things are very important, these resistances. And this item is very powerful. I am using this one here. I've been using this one mostly because of the health that it provides. As we can see down here, of course, the numbers now are black. This is a very old bug of the game. Sometimes the numbers here and here are black or yellow. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. We can see that our health is 11,000. 11,000 health. I tried to stack as much health as possible for this build so I could survive. I had this item. This item is perfect for this job. It is perfect for this build. Of course, we could fight something even better than this one, but you have to be very careful. This is a master frequent item of Ragnarok. Ragnarok is a great expansion, and this is a great item, great rolled item. Not great item, because when it doesn't have the rolls that you need for your build, it is a useless item. But this one is very nice. I have been using in legendary difficulty the greater artifact Kick Slayer. This is a great one. It provides some very good things, physical and stun resistances, strength, +1 to all skills in warfare mastery which we play with, pierce resistance which is very important as completion bonus, some bleeding damage, and of course base damage. Physical damage, 15 physical damage. We have the Griefs of the Argonauts, a super great item with super great stats for this build, also health included and health regeneration. They help very much. As we said before, health is super important for this build. I've been using the Stonebiter Cuffs +3 to all skills, super important. The great thing about this specific item is that it also comes with pierce damage, a percentage, And as we can see, these two swords, they deal some pierce damage. It is not a big amount, of course. We get only 10% pierce ratio for these two swords. But yeah, I didn't go to play with pierce damage. I don't care about pierce damage with this build. But since we have the pierce damage, the pierce ratio conversion on the items itself, then we have here some 22% pierce damage, which increases more the small amount of pierce damage that we deal with these swords, which is fine. I mean, even if I don't care about this pierce damage, it is still useful. The very important thing about this item is of course the 8% chance to avoid projectiles. It helps super greatly with survivability, and I have attached an incarnation of Amun-Ra's Glory for even more health and energy. Energy is also super duper important for this build. As you can see, we have 1300 energy plus something, which is super important because with this build you cast Skulls almost all the time, you cast Freezing Blast, you cast War Wind. As we can see, if you are in a battlefield with many enemies, you use Skulls all the time. Our Skulls have very good refreshes for the cooldowns, not too much cooldown time. So as you can see, we cast them all the time, and this one goes down. So again, energy is super important. This is why we have this one here. And also let's not forget that we have the same one here with more energy. The amulet is the Turk of the Ancestors. This is a great amulet, great resistances, super important of course, all of the resistances here. We have total damage, very nice, defensive ability super important, and we have +1 to all skills, which helps greatly. Of course, the +3 to the other skills. We don't use the skills. Ancestral Horn, we could be using this one because it belongs here in Warfare Mastery. Where is it? This is the one. And yeah, but we don't use that skill, we don't care about that skill. But this item overall is a great one for this build. But this item actually is a great item for many builds. Many builds. It is very powerful. Now, for the two rings. Here is what I did with the two rings. Hail Seal of Immortality. Health, as much health as possible. We stack health and also we stack strength. The incarnation of Dionysus wine skin is a great one because it gives both health and strength, but it gives physical resistance. 42% physical resistance. Here we have one more Hail of Immortality ring. Even more strength, even more health. And the incarnation down here is the Ankh of Isis, which provides even more health and even more health as completion bonus. So as we can see, yeah, we stack as much health as possible. Of course, we try to get as many resistances as possible, but it is not that easy to do that, especially with this setup of items here. But still, it is very good. The build stays alive very nicely. It is a very powerful build. It plays very well. It is a very satisfying build to play with. And of course, I have died 35 times. Now, it is worthy of mentioning that 18 of the total deaths happened in normal difficulty. Before, of course, I was able to equip very strong items. I died because in the beginning this build is kind of hard to play without dying if you don't have good equipment, especially when you start on level 40 with an accomplished hero. I died 18 times in normal difficulty, but then pay attention to this, I died only 17 times in both epic and legendary difficulties. Only 17 deaths in epic and legendary difficulties, when I had 18 deaths in only the 5th act of normal difficulty. Which means that after I was able to equip some of the good items of the build, yeah, it was hard for me to die by enemies. Most of the deaths happened because I was not careful enough. I knew, for example, that I was going... Let me give you an example. When I went down in Legendary to the boss Cerberus to fight against Cerberus, I had this resistance here. Minus 80%, 80%. yeah, you don't got to go down to that boss to fight that boss when you have this resistance, because if it hits you with poison, with its poisonous attacks, you'll die very very fast. Even if you have 11,000 health. Resistances are super important in this game. But I decided to take the risk and go down there. The good and funny thing is that I didn't die from that boss, even though I have this resistance. But I took similar risks in other cases, in other boss fights or other places with enemies that I knew they could kill me very easily because of my very bad resistances. I took the risks and sometimes I died. This is mostly I die because of this thing, because I take unnecessary risks. This is why I have 35 deaths. This is nothing actually for this build. Just remember that in normal difficulty Act 5 only I died 18 times, and in both epic and legendary difficulties I died only 17 times. This says a lot. Of course, one of the reasons I didn't die against Cerberus boss is that I have this one equipped, plus 35% less damage from beasts. It helps. So yeah, but still, I should have died. But I didn't die because after all we have many good things here. We have Squall, you cast it on the boss. The boss now gets reduced damage at you, and also you reduce the resistances of the boss, you hit harder the boss now, and especially when you have the battle standard on the ground, the battle standard gives you damage absorption, which works against all types of damage, so it makes you very very powerful. This is the build, Frozen Blades build. A very satisfying build to play with. It works even with Ragnarok. I say this because the power sword is a very old one. If I'm not mistaken, this item came with the base game of Titan Quest, not even Immortal Throne. It is a super old item, but even Immortal Throne after all is a super old expansion. It came back 12 years ago, so yeah. Ragnarok is very new. It came out about 16 months ago. It is a new expansion, still a fresh one. And it brought many new very powerful items in the game. But still, with this item here, dual wielding powers, we can destroy content in this game. If we get a good build, if we have a good setup of a build with good combinations of items and skills, then yeah. So guys, this is it, the update for the Frozen Blades build. Very soon, as I said before, we will have a multiplayer streaming with this one, maybe even tomorrow, I don't know. Tomorrow we will live stream multiplayer Titan Quest, and leave a comment below if you want to see this build tomorrow. We will have it tomorrow in the multiplayer session. If not, we will have something else. Yeah, thanks for watching this video. I have the new build going on. The new build will come, I don't know when. I will try to go as fast as possible through the game, and to have the build ready to show you. The build, the Lord of the Rings build, this is how I call it. It is not a thematic build, I just had the idea, this funny idea to put this name on the build. It is a different build, and we will have this build soon enough, I hope. I will see you very soon. Have fun whatever you do. Don't forget, play Titan Quest. Titan Quest gets more content very soon. We have new updates coming. Stay tuned.